Alrighty guys, welcome back to another LEGO set review from BrickByBrick, and today we have set number 75279. This is the LEGO Star Wars Advent Calendar from 2020. This is the first LEGO Star Wars Advent Calendar that I bought, and it contains 311 pieces for $40 retail, though for the first time that I remember at least, this was very readily available for $30 at Walmart, and eventually even cheaper than that. I think I paid like $25 for this from Walgreens of all places. This did sell out before December really started, I think. Or at least it was very hard to find after the beginning of December. So it does seem to have been a pretty popular one. And honestly, I kind of agree. Just from the box, you can tell it's got the 2 Christmas sweaters. As well as even a Santa hat for Dio and a Snowgonk. But, you know, it actually, I thought that it had some pretty cool other stuff in here as well. So, you know, that's just all there is from the front of the box. Obviously, if you were going to open this up again next year or something, then spoiler alert for what's inside. But we are going to go through in order and just show you all the builds real briefly. You know, just a little bit of a review. And the base here is kind of plain for, you know, an average advent calendar. It's really just a snowy background. I do kind of like this scene though, and this does take some amount of inspiration from the LEGO Star Wars Holiday Special, which was released this year, but it's not super directly related to that. It's really just the Christmas jumpers. And actually, I don't even remember if Darth Vader's is in it, but I know Poe's Christmas jumper was in the Holiday Special. So first up for day one, we have this little Awing build, and, you know, it's an Awing. It's definitely instantly recognizable. And, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much all you can really ask for. No real play features or anything. It just, you know, is an Awing, and, you know, it's built relatively simply. I guess some studs on the side construction, which I guess is maybe a tiny bit complex. You have a gap that goes a little bit further back than it should, but, you know, unless you're looking from straight up and down, it's like super noticeable. Like, you don't see just straight through it unless you are looking from straight above. It's got the little guns on the side, the engines, you know, it's not perfectly, completely proportional, and it doesn't really have any suggestion of the wings going downwards, which is probably the only thing that bothers me a little bit about this, but other than that, you know, it's pretty well done, I think. And, you know, for a little advent calendar build, not bad at all. And just to compare it to the version from the Death Star mini build set thing, it's a bit larger scale, but it's about the same size, you know, not too much bigger. Though, the one thing that I appreciate that this one was able to get is a little bit of a suggestion of the fact that the wings go in both directions. But, you know, they're both fine. This one probably could have used some dark red, though. And I didn't show you this for day one, but I will for day two, just to introduce the fact that there are several days that include letters which spell out a 7-letter code advertised down here on the bottom, and it will unlock something in the Star Wars Skywalker Saga game that isn't out yet. So, you know, it will be the same for everyone, so it'll be easy to find that. You didn't really have to buy this set to get that. But, you know, the code will be Life Day. So, just, you know, to get that out of the way, and, you know, it'll just come up in order, so the next letter that it shows will be an I, etc. Day two is this really nice Poe Dameron minifigure, though, with his awesome Christmas sweater that's got BB-8 on it. I really like the way that came out. Yeah, it looks pretty excellent. He's got a little blaster as well. Good back printing on there. It does have his alternate face. This is the face that they've been using for Poe since The Force Awakens, so no changes there. But, yeah, it looks pretty good, and he does get a nice little coffee cup as well. So, you know, pretty good figure, and a nice desirable torso there. Day three gives us this little micro build of the Lars Homestead, and it looks pretty great. I like the use of these new parts here for the entrances, and, you know, dome piece looks pretty appropriate, and you got this little tan version of a moisture vaporator back there, too. So, yeah, it's pretty excellently done, and, you know, definitely fits the fact that we got a decent amount of Tatooine sets in 2020, so it's cool to get this, I think. And next up for day 4, we get this Tatooine Luke Skywalker, and this is a pretty common figure. There's nothing new about this one. Nothing new for this year. It would have been kind of cool if they included the version with the cloak thing from the Luke's Land Speeder this year, but I understand why they didn't, because, you know, that was kind of supposed to be something special for that set. So, you know, here we just get standard Farm Boy Luke, and I guess it's cool to get a Luke Skywalker. And it's actually kind of cool for me, because literally the only Farm Boy Luke that I have is from the 2020 Luke's Land Speeder, so, you know, it's cool to get this one again and just have an extra. Torso and leg print look good. Like, it's a well-designed figure. I like the hairpiece for him, and yeah, looks pretty good. Got some decent back printing, and also has an alternate facial expression, which is fine. And he does come with the macro binoculars there. Yeah, pretty decent figure, but nothing to write home about. And next up for day 5, we get this mini version of the Razor Crest, which it's cool that they were able to get something Mandalorian in here. Though, as we'll see, we don't really have a figure to go with this, which is kind of unfortunate, because if you noticed, we had the Lars and then we had Luke, who kind of goes with that. But, you know, there are several figures in this, or several builds in this, where we won't have figures to go with them, so it's not like that was a requirement that they missed out on. It's just something that would have been kind of nice. As far as this goes, I think that it's an okay build. It feels a little bit long, and having the studs there it would have been probably better to cover that with a tile. Just so you don't have that circular shape, because there's nothing circular there on the Razor Crest. But, you know, the engines are fine. Yeah, this back here is where it sort of feels like it's a stud too long, but I don't know. Or maybe the engines are just too short. It's okay. Like, you can tell it's a Razor Crest, but it's not a particularly super fantastically executed one. And next up, for day 6, we have a little mini version of the TIE Dagger. And unfortunately, it won't normally stand like that on its own, because I had to plop a piece there to make it not sit like this. So, you know, as far as the ship goes, it's probably the best you could do at this scale. You don't get any hint of red on the wings, which is a little bit of a shame, but, you know, the wings are the right shape, and the cockpit is about maybe a tiny bit too big, but, you know, it's what you would expect for a mini build like this if you wanted to have any sort of amount of detail there. And you'd have a little bit of a suggestion of thrust in the back. So, yeah, this is fine. It's probably better executed than I'll give it credit for, but I just don't like that it can't stand up, so you have it just looking weird all the time. And for day 7, we do have a copy of the Sith Trooper, which is kind of cool. It does appear in the Battle Pack and the Kylo Ren shuttle set. So, you know, it is nice to get another one to help you build up your army a little bit. The torso and leg printing on this guy are really good, I think. And, yeah, I mean, back printing is pretty good. The helmet looks a tad off, but it's pretty well done, I think, for what it is. It does have some fine printing of dark red lines up on the top. Looks pretty good, and he does get a blaster as well, which is cool. He does obviously get the angry clone head, but, you know, it's not that big a deal. Day 8 gives us this pretty well executed X-Wing. I think that it came out pretty nicely. I like how they use this new double cheese slope on the front end. I think that really helps fix up the shape there. I get a little bit much red there. You know, it's probably a tad overkill, but, you know, it's not too big a deal. They do use an ingot on the bottom to cover up a little bit of that. You know, that looks pretty good. And, you know, the wings of this X-Wing are kind of borrowed from a previous version, or several previous versions, but they do have their attack position. And while I don't think it looks nearly as good this way, you do at least have the functionality of being able to put it in flight mode. So, you know, it's kind of cool. And you do have a stud back there to represent the astromech, which, you know, overall I think this is a pretty nice build, and I think that it's definitely more accurate than all of the builds, well, all of the vehicle builds that we've seen so far in this Advent calendar, with the exception of maybe the TIE Dagger, but I just don't like that one that much. And next up for day 9, we have the Rise of Skywalker version of Rey, which this is a pretty good figure. I do think that, you know, it looks pretty good. I mean, it's probably one of the better Rey figures that LEGO has made. I don't know, I just like the way that the white looks. Yeah, regardless of your thoughts on the Rise of Skywalker's movie, I do think that, the costumes at least look pretty good, so it is cool to get the figures still. Face print still the same, still not too much difference between the expressions there, but she does get her lightsaber, and she does get her hairpiece, and overall looks pretty good. Would have been kind of cool if they included a white hood piece or something, but I guess it wouldn't really fit with her hair, so I guess that's probably why they didn't do it. Yeah, that makes sense. And day 10 gives us Dio with the Santa hat, which is kind of not what I expected. I didn't really expect them to give us 2 characters 2 days in a row, but the Dio part is pretty okay. I do not really like the fact that his head is perfectly facing forward. Like, I think if they angled it a couple of degrees forward, so he was looking down a little bit, this would have been a way cooler piece, and it would have looked way better, regardless of the fact that the proportions of the head aren't super great. Like, it seems to be very long, but we do have a single stud and the Santa hat in there, and the Santa hat is put on upside down, so that it looks like he is actually kind of wearing it. And yeah, it's overall, if you want the Dio piece, this is the cheapest way to get it, I believe, at this point. And it is a cool character. I did like Dio a lot. It's just that I don't love this LEGO version of him. I think the buildable Dio is pretty good, but yeah, I'm just not really able to get behind the molded version of him here. And don't get me wrong, I do think that it's still great that we were able to get him in such a cheap set. Anyway, day 11 is this Millennium Falcon, which looks pretty good at first glance. It's only really when I pick it up and look at it like this that I realize, oh, this is a pancake falcon, basically. I think that this could have been a really fantastic build had they given you one more layer of height so that you had 2 wedge plates tall. I think that if they had done that, this could have been a pretty awesome little version of the Millennium Falcon. The way it is, it's not bad. Certainly, if you're looking at it at an angle like this, at first glance it looks pretty good. It is really only when you realize how thin it actually is that, it kind of feels a little bit off. Like, yeah, it shouldn't be super thick, but I don't know. I just feel like this isn't quite... It doesn't feel bulky enough to be a Millennium Falcon, and I think that that's my problem with it. But it's still a decent build, and it is still recognizable. So, kids will basically get the same amount of play value as they put out of one that looks slightly better. So, I'm not going to complain too much, but it's just not one of my favorite builds here. And next up for day 12, we have a Porg, and this is nothing that we haven't seen before. This is the same colors, even, I believe, that appeared in the UCS Falcon and Octu, I think. Something like that. If it's the same as at least one of those, so I'm pretty sure it's the same as Octu. But anyway, it has the same printed Porg headpiece that they have used since the beginning, and yeah, it's got feathers that are dark gray, and yeah, it's cool. I like Porgs, so happy to get more Porgs, and that's really about all I gotta say about this guy. Day 13 gives us this little model of a Republic cruiser, the Radiant 7, which is a pretty decent build. It's got the dark red going for it, which is just kind of a cool color. And overall, I mean, it looks relatively similar to the ship, so I'm not gonna complain too much about it. It's definitely the most obscure thing that we've seen so far. Not that it's particularly obscure, it's just that, it's not a Millennium Falcon or an X-Wing or an A-Wing or the Razor Crest or any of the figures, so, it's cool to be getting something from the prequels, or I guess from prequels or Clone Wars, that whole era. So, it's nice to get some representation of that finally, but it's not a particularly super build or anything. It's just a cool little thing, and I appreciate it. And next up, day 14, we've got this plain old battle droid, and yeah, he's a plain old battle droid. He does have the gunmetal gray gun, which is kind of cool. Nice to get gunmetal gray versions of those, and there's really nothing special about this battle droid, but there's really nothing bad about it either. It's certainly nice to get more of them to add to any sort of battle scene you got going on. You can help build up your army a little bit. And next up we have this build of the Trade Federation control ship, and this is a pretty cool little thing. I don't think we've ever seen this in LEGO before. If we have, it was just an advent calendar build like this. But this one looks really good. I actually really am happy with the way that this came out. I think that it looks pretty fantastic. Probably the best you could do at this scale. And yeah, I mean, I really do not have any complaints about this at all. I think this is probably my favorite build that we've gotten out of here. It's between this and the X-Wing, but I think just, for the fact that this is something that we don't get many builds of nearly as often, I think I'm going to have to go with this so far. I think that it just looks good, and I'm happy to get it. So, that's cool. And it's also nice to get something from the prequels that is a little bit more, or a little bit less covered in LEGO sets. And from my favorite, we move on to what is probably my least favorite for day 16. This is Anakins Pod Racer. And I like Anakins Pod Racer. It's a cool thing. It's just that this one isn't a particularly good version of it. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of lost me a little bit here. But it's a thing. And you can play with it like you'll be able to play with a better looking version of it. So, kids probably won't hate it, but it is definitely, I think, the worst executed build in this advent calendar so far. It just is not particularly well made. And, well, from that we move on to what is probably my new favorite build of this advent calendar, which is this pit droid. This is, it's kind of a figure, but it is built up, so I'm going to consider it a build, I guess. And this is just a really well put together version of a pit droid. It uses all pretty common parts. There's nothing really special about this, but it's really nicely done. You can articulate the arms, you can rotate them up and down. You can't even articulate the legs a little bit. It's hard when you have one studded down, but you can move them separately, independently. You can rotate him at the torso, side to side, and you can turn his head side to side, and you can kind of tilt it side to side a little bit. It's a little bit easier if you move this backwards a little bit, but you can kind of turn him side to side just a tad. You can animate this guy pretty well for what he is, and it's just a clever build, and I don't know, I'm really particularly pleasantly surprised by this, and it's the closest thing we have to a Mandalorian figure in this advent calendar, so I guess that's cool. Well, I guess there's one more coming, but this is kind of cool to see, especially since they popped up recently again in The Mandalorian. And next up for day 18, we have this little micro snowspeeder, and yeah, it's a decent version of a snowspeeder. It feels very similar to ones we've seen before. I don't know how different it is from previous ones, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's good. It's got the harpoon gun facing backwards. Cockpit looks pretty good. And the bottom just has a plate to keep it, off the ground. And yeah, it's a fine little snowspeeder build. And next up, we have this Taunton, and it's an interesting little build. I can't say I'm particularly a huge fan of it. It does appear to be a Rudolph Taunton. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but that's at least what it feels like. It's an interesting thing. I don't think we've ever seen an advent calendar scale Taunton before. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you think, how well it works. But it's got a little bit of articulation. You can move the head up and down. It looks weird if you move it up, but in the down position it looks okay. He doesn't really have eyes, which is probably the creepy thing about it. But it does have a tail. The tail is pretty well represented in the saddle. Even the legs are fine. It is really just that head that is very strange to me, and I guess also that the clips in front. That clip, I don't really know what it's supposed to be for, but anyway, that's the Taunton. Probably my new least favorite build. And it looks like we are filling out the Hoth build here with a shield generator, and this actually looks pretty good. I don't know why they used that blue there. It feels distracting, kind of takes away from it a little bit, especially viewed from the back. But this looks okay. The snow around it looks fine, and you do have the 4 discs there, so it is getting a little bit of accuracy points there. But yeah, it's pretty much all I got for this. And well, day 21 has a little bit of a treat here with our Snowgonk, and this is kind of just a funny little snowman gonk droid build. Yeah, it's kind of cute. I like the carrot for its nose, even if it does stick out a little bit far. It does have the 2 arms there, which are green. I don't know if it makes sense for them to be green. Maybe it would have been better if they were brown, but Gonk droids don't really have arms in the first place, so any arms, I guess, are better than no arms. And you could just remove those if they really bother you, and you can even replace them too if they bother you. But the top hat up there is kind of cool, maybe a little bit far back, but yeah, overall, Snowgonk droid is a cooler version of a snowman than a lot of snowmen that we get, so cool to get this. Day 22 gives us a Stormtrooper, and this is the new version of Stormtroopers, and it's a pretty cool figure. I like the dual molded helmet personally. I know a lot of people don't care for it that much, but I don't know, I like it, and you can never really have too many Stormtrooper minifigures, so, you know, I'm not really going to complain about this one. Yeah, it's nice to get him. And again, that I think this is my first Stormtrooper with a new dual molded helmet. I know I have the Sand Trooper, but I don't think I have any other of these Stormtroopers, so it is cool to get my first one. And for our second to last day, we have this mini Darth Vader's castle, and this is an impressive mini build too. Not even just because they give us this, you know, Darth Vader's castle, which is a pretty cool mini build by itself. Like, I like the way that this looks, and it definitely is instantly recognizable. So, you know, there's that. I like the lava flowing out of it. No back detail, but I didn't really expect any. But we also have this really cute little TIE fighter. It is supposed to be the Darth Vader's TIE Advanced that comes in this set, and you can fit it like in the back down here. You can't do that here, but and also the other thing I was going to say, since it uses binoculars, which is kind of clever, this looks more like a TIE bomber than Darth Vader's TIE Advanced. But you know, even if it is supposed to be a TIE bomber, it is pretty like cool, and you could just imagine that it is. You know, if you want to, it can be really whatever you want. But that's just kind of a clever use of binoculars in those clips to make something that is supposed to be a TIE vehicle of sorts. That much you can tell. I guess when it comes down to what specific type of TIE, it comes a little bit dicey. But yeah, if you use it as a TIE bomber, I would say it's fantastic. Last up, we have Darth Vader with a Christmas sweater, and this is a really neat figure. He uses the regular Darth Vader legs, same as the helmet and face print underneath. It is nice that you get the happy one because it's a happy Christmas set. You know, instead of the burned version from episode 3. But yeah, the back printing on the head as well he's got, and he even has back printing on the torso, which you have to move the cape out of the way for you to see it. But he's got the little snowflake or star patterns, whatever they're supposed to be, just continued around, and it's nice to see that they didn't just give him no back printing, just because you won't be able to see it most of the time. But if we put that back on around the front, we do have a circular Death Star pattern on there, which does look really cool. I think that it is a well-done torso print, and it is a desirable thing too, so I am happy to have gotten this. I think that these Christmas sweater figures in this advent calendar are really excellent. And that's everything spread out here. We've seen it all. There is actually a pretty decent spread of stuff here. Actually, I'm going to move this guy out of the way so you can see the pit droid. Yeah, we got a couple things from Hoth over here. We got some general Rebel fleet ships. A little bit of Imperial representation with Vader, a Stormtrooper, and his castle. We do have one build from The Mandalorian, a little bit represented here, which is kind of cool. You know, would have been nice if it was a little bit more represented. We do have the just one completely random wacky thing, which is the Gonk droid. Doesn't really fit into any of the categories, so I guess probably closest to Hoth. But yeah, there's that. Decent amount of Tatooine representation from both the prequels and the original trilogy. I really like that pit droid still. And then a little bit of Clone Wars / prequel ships, and then a really generous serving of sequel trilogy characters with the one sequel trilogy build, and I guess this is a half sequel trilogy build. Even this you could consider half sequel trilogy build at this point. But yeah, I mean, I think that the overall variety here is pretty good, and I think that a lot of the individual builds here are pretty nice. There were a couple of duds, not too many though. Mainly Anakins Pod Racer. Anakins Pod Racer and the Taunton are the two here that don't look so great, but the rest of these I think are all good, and the figure selection I think is pretty great. We have, traditional minifigure-wise, we have 6 of them, and of them 2 are exclusive with the torsos there. And the Sith Trooper and Stormtrooper are always useful. You can always use more of those to build up your little armies there. And, getting Rey and Luke is cool to just get good versions of those, especially with slight tie-in to the holiday special here. Rey is a good figure to have. And it is nice to get Dio on a Porg as well, so, it's just nice. And we do have the Pit Droid and Battle Droid, which are both nice things to just have extra of, too. And that's not even mentioning the Snowgonk, which is just a cool little thing. So, I mean, the amount of cool stuff you get here is very good, and I think that for $40, it's a decent value, but since it was available so frequently at $30, I think that, it would have been a very good decision to buy one at that price. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this little review of the Advent calendar. I know it's a little bit after Christmas, but I hope you guys enjoyed it nonetheless, and I'll see you guys all next time. Bye, everyone.